See, when you talk about the issues of crime and how it affects people, people are not interested whether it's provincial government or national government. The fact is, communities need to be safe. You know, one of the things I used to enforce on station level, when an auntie comes to you and says to you, my tap was stolen, take it seriously. Because she doesn't care about Donkey Boyson or Modak or whoever. She's worried about that tap or the washing that gets stolen or the hose pipe that's gone or the dog that gets stolen. That is the community, is the community's needs. And if we don't service those needs, we're not dealing with the problems of our community. Likewise, when it comes to domestic violence and GBV, you know, during my time in the police, every year between the 16 days of activism, I used to have a group of guys, we still in a club together, only cops, and we'd ride from Cape Town, and we'd do every little rural area around the Western Cape, roughly about 5,800 kilometers we'd cover. And it's horrendous when you talk to the community to see how the issues of domestic violence are dealt with. In my time, I got a station commander suspended and transferred. The provincial commissioner wouldn't fire him. If it was me, I would have fired him. You know, a woman got raped, and it was fortunate that she was raped on the Friday, and the Saturday we were in this dorpie. And then the guest house where we stayed at, the owner of the guest house told us, hey, there was a woman raped, she was totally drunk, and she's laying in the cells. So that didn't sound right to me, and I went to the cells because why is the victim in the cells? So when I approached the station commander, he said to me, nee, generaal, hy ding was gesyp. There was nothing that infuriated me more. I'll tell you, I was absolutely crazy. From his office, I phoned the provincial commissioner. I said, you've got to deal with this guy. He's not fit to be here. And this is the kind of treatment. In George, Pakkelsdorp, all our own areas. There was a lady when we had an imbizo with the community who came there and said she just wants to raise something. And fortunately then the female General Jafter was also with us. And she said, you know, I come to the police station at Pakkelsdorp regularly because my husband beats me. And whenever I get there, they say to me, maar mevrou, daar gaan nie geld wees vir die kos nie, die kinders gaan nie skool toe gaan nie. Los maar die saak, man. So they convince her to leave it and take the next beating. But then she says, and never once did the police come to her house. Then she said one Saturday afternoon she was visiting friends. And there was a big noise next door. And she looked over the wall. And there she saw in the yard 4 of the policemen that regularly deal with her. And her husband sitting.
Yeah.
And then she realized, hey, this is why.
This is why, yeah.
This is why, because, you know, we don't get a chance. Yeah.
Can we just pause it a moment? Just pause quickly. That was on the pause. Okay, General, as you said, I just wanted to find out how do you feel about this current state of law enforcement and criminal justice?
I want to ask you what state. I mean, really, there doesn't seem to be any policing. A friend of mine, you might have seen it on TikTok. he came home after one night. And there was an accident in Van Riebeeck Road in Kuils River. At the McDonald's, it's about a block away from the police station. And when he saw it, he said, okay, let me go and help there. Because now, there were 4 or 5 guys in the one car, black guys, the Camry. And the bakkie that they rode into was in Boer. So when he checked in the black car, he saw long guns in it. And he thought, no, he's not going to go further with this. He's going to go up to the police station, it's just a block away. When he got there, the police station was locked up, dark. He stood there calling and knocking and nobody came. And we might say that might be the exception, not the norm, but that is the norm. When you phone for a van in your area because there's an emergency, if you get a van within an hour, then you're lucky. Sometimes they'll respond to that emergency the next day when there are bodies on the ground. So, if you ask me about the state of policing, I want to say to you, it's bad. When people tend to say, but the law enforcement in our area, those law enforcement guys are not trained. 4 months is what they do.
4 months?
4 months. I mean, how do you train a person to act in 4 months? That is why you find that gangsters will attack them. Because there's no respect. The gangsters know and they are young. Majority of them are black. They don't know our areas. They can't speak the language. So they're quite useless to us. They're absolutely quite useless. I mean, I look in this area, for example. Regularly, there's a Pinelands police station van that patrols here. The law enforcement, and the law enforcement have a thing, and this is a point that I think we must take very, very seriously. They stop, they get out, they talk to you. So you start believing in them. In the meantime, their role is politically motivated. Their role is politically motivated. They're working for JP. And that is who they work for. They don't work for law enforcement. So one has to be cognizant of that fact all the time. That yes, we need them to have a presence and visibility in our areas and whatever, but let's not forget who they are. And that is why I keep saying to the president is, we've got to work flat out for 2026. I would say I'm not really interested in taking political power in the province or national. At local government level, that is where our people are affected most. That for me is the most important sphere of government. It deals with the bread and butter issues. If you look at what Paul has been doing and Nazmi with the electricity boxes, those are issues that affect our people. The issues of a blocked drain. In this area, it might not seem important to people. Like my neighbor over the road here. I say to him, you're a privileged man. Because you have your own business, your whole family works for that business. Every Sunday, yourself and your daughters and your son, you go out. You go out for a drive somewhere. Your son drives a top of the range BMW. I said, you remember we stood in the queue together to vote. I said to him, I have no doubt where your vote went to. I have no doubt where your vote went to. Because you are almost like whites. The privileged coloreds are like whites. They don't want their privilege to be interfered with.
Correct.
Maybe now that they see the president in parliament, their perceptions will change. I've got quite a few guys. Just on Sunday, the guy said to me, hey man, I want to meet this fragile character. I've got money to plow into the NCC. So I said, listen, be careful, man. This is not the ANC. The NCC doesn't operate on money. And this is part of what we need to be careful of. These guys will pitch up now to corrupt our members, corrupt our leadership, and give them 100,000 rand for the party and here's 50,000 for you. This is how they start controlling us. And the way it's going now, it appeals to me. It appeals to me because all my life I've fought against corruption. And I cannot, there's something that I cannot stand, and that's people, whether you are in the police or in the public or anywhere, when you are corrupt, there's nothing that I have to do with you. So there's lots of work to be done. There's lots and lots of work to be done. But I think one of those areas is to look at the commitment to service delivery, because that is not there. That is not there. You can say what you like. In our areas, crime is not taken seriously. The fact is that you can have 84 murders a week in this place. It's not normal.
84, it's abnormal society.
It's not normal. It's more than in the Ukraine, and it's more than what we have in Palestine.
Yeah.
What is this guy? Yeah. So I mean, we've got to make some impact when it comes to our people.
And then on the social and the economic factors that contribute a rise to gangsterism, what's your take on that?
You know, I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, one could look solely at drug dealers when we talk about the economic situation of gangs. Today, if you look at a guy like Ralph Stansfield, he owns businesses in Canal Walk, he owns a garage. When we were at the AGU, we stopped. Shell wanted to give him the Ultra City on the N7. And that would have been a drug route. And I'd look back to when Rashid Staghi was buried. All the people that we knew to be associates were there, but there were a whole lot of other people sitting right in the front. And you kind of say to yourself, who are these people? And when you go back and check, then you'll see money goes from one account to the next, to the next, to the next. So if we look at the economic side, I think the mistake we make to say that gangsterism is the scolly on the street in Mitchell's Plain. It's not. Gangsterism sits in Durbanville, Constantia, Newlands. That is where the hub of it sits. If you look, for instance, at Baka, Baka doesn't stay in Mitchell's Plain. He stays in Durbanville, in a mansion. And I think the social perception is that there's money there, there's wealth, there's this easy life, but the reality is it's only that one guy that makes the money, that can drive the fancy car he drives. The foot soldiers can admire that. And they can maybe aspire towards it, but they're not all going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and that's also I think where it comes into to the majority of our people not recognizing that it's only just one guy, and I think that the family background also have an influence
Absolutely.
on the likelihood of youngsters within our community, colored
Yeah.
communities, joining these gangs. I didn't say that that's the case, that the family of as one can go into a place like Balha, where half of the fathers are in prison,
Yeah.
the mothers are left to fend for their own, and they have kids, and these kids then also becomes part of the cycle, because there's no father figure, so where did we how do one tackle that issue, man? you know
I think you raise a very important point, in that on a social level, a big contributor to empowering the gangs is the fact that many homes are fatherless. In some of them, they are not. They are not in jail. They are there, but they don't live with the family. They don't contribute. They don't spend time with the children. Now, I believe every boy needs a father. He needs a father. There's a story of a fellow who spent many years in prison. I mean, he's tattooed like a newspaper. He's a reformed gangster. He was a young boy at school. His story goes something like, his father never spoke to them. He sat in the lounge and watched the TV, and these people were playing with an oval ball, but his father never shared anything with him. But then Ralph's uncle Colin took him, and saw a potential in him, saw that this boy is doing good with his grades at school, etc. And that he's lacking that attention of a father figure. So Colin brought him in, nurtured him, made him feel good and whatever. And then after a while, he used to come there straight from school. In his uniform, he would unpack his bag and Colin would put the buttons in there and he'd go and deliver. Eventually, it got to such a big thing that he was arrested and he went to prison. I think he spent something like 18 years in prison. And then he sat and realized that this cannot be the issue. He is there because his father didn't take care of him. And this is the message that he brings across. And I was saying to the president, these are the people that we should, to hell with what other people say about this being a gangster party and whatever. We should bring these people in, and we should run with them in the communities, that they talk to people, and the effects of seeing a tattooed man talking there to you about gangsterism and about prison is a massive deterrent. Because, I used to visit the prisons quite often. And at Worcester, they have a juvenile section there. And everybody in the juvenile section is between 14 and 17 years old. And they're all in there for either rape or murder.
Yeah.
And you look at the age and you say to yourself, is this what we want for our children? Because they're not blacks, they're all colored. They are all colored kids. And you have to ask Where did things go wrong? You know, my first meeting with the president, I approached him because I said to him, we've got to do something. Eh? We've got to do something. Nothing is being done by the ruling party or the opposition or anybody else. I never forget we met at the Muggen Bean Kennel Center. Eh? And from that point onwards, we have moved ahead steadfastly. I mean, if you look at Beacon Valley, it was a nightmare. Eh? It was a nightmare. It's not the same. It's not perfect, but it's not the same like it was. And I think one of the factors that hold us back in the police is that the police doesn't believe you must talk to gangsters. I firmly believe that they are part of the community. You cannot talk to my wife and exclude me because I'm a gangster. Eh? It's impossible. You have to, and that is how we're going to win people. Because, you know, if you look at the past in District 6, if you look at the Starlight gang and the Globe gang, and those gangs, they fought among each other. The people never saw them fighting. Eh? But if you were lived in a Globe gang territory, they looked after you. Eh? There wasn't a issue that your child can't go to the shop, or the gang would make sure that the place is safe. Eh?
Yeah, they wouldn't mean stealing your taps or
No, no.
Don't take
Eh?
care.
And they'll deal with the outside gang coming in. Eh? Now, I say straight, this might sound a bit controversial, eh? But I'm not interested in the business of the gangs. Eh? I'm interested in the murder that takes place on the streets. We cannot possibly have our brothers and our sons and our children being killed with such huge numbers and nothing is happening about it. Eh? And I think where our president is now, we are going to make a difference. Eh?
Of course, because we had, like you said, that the murders now within our communities are more than the countries that has war after war.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and for people just to ignore that, I think it speaks deeper to how we perceive ourselves as a people, man.
Yes.
You know, and how we look at our communities, because you get a lot, like you mentioned, colors that are typical to whites, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, so they would see there's a problem, but they would feel that you, in your house, you need to sort it out.
Yeah.
Instead of having a approach with the community, the village, and the keys of the community.
Yes.
You know, and I feel that is a contributing factor when it comes to the increase of gangsterism, because one can only see at the local elections as well, not the local, the national elections. You have one side that says that the DA or the ruling party is working, and one side said, but we don't see this. But then when one goes to the root, they are benefiting and they are afraid of the privilege being lost, you know, in that process.
Yes.
Because now you have to move out of your house to assist. And some of us has become so comfortable now within our house that we don't feel that we are a part of this problem. When in the meanwhile, that when we move out of our gates, we are in home. You know, you can have the biggest house within a place as an overpark. You can have high fences, but sooner or later moet je winkel toe gaan. You know.
That's it. Of you can move
Or you
winkel te
can
gaan.
winkel toe gaan.
Yeah.
And our people are so blinded that they don't see that these things, it needs intervention not only by the police but by the community itself.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, the recruitments and things has changed, and we see more and more police officers that are not I would say accustomed with how our culture is or how our communities is. So they will just come and say don't smoke, but they won't sit, with that lady and try and find out why are you doing this.
Yeah.
How can we assist. Now you say don't smoke. The lady here by his friends here, that the police now approach him, and somehow peer pressure has a big effect,
No, for sure.
especially where there is a fatherless homes. Now these ladies here but you this man, and they come to you and stuff like that. So that's where it comes down again, that we have lost that way the village raised the kid. you know
Yeah.
and that to me is detrimental. I want to ask, do you think that how does the unemployment contribute to gang recruitment, the underemployment within our communities? Because as we know, we can see it clearly that the businesses now within our communities, majority is not owned by us. The businesses that then employ people aren't from the communities.
Yeah.
So do you say that is also one major thing?
Yes, I think it is one of the contributing factors towards people being recruited into a gang. I think we should look at the three of us. If every day you have no income, nothing, you can't even buy yourself a cigarette. So you start looking for an opportunity. So you go to the nearest shop and you start hanging around there saying, "Hey, I'm looking for an odd or whatever." The gang recognizes you as a person who they can use. So when you are at your lowest, the gang comes and gives you 500 rand. It's like the heavens have opened up for you. So you can now do things. But they say to you, there's more where this has come from. But we need to talk. And that is how the process runs. Once you're in there, you can forget about that 500 rand. You're now owned by the gang. And this is where I also see a whole lot of frustration coming. There are good people that would like to get out of the game, but they can't. They can't. So this is why I feel, as an organization, it's important that we sit down and we talk to gangs. We sit down and talk to them, and almost to the point of laying down the law. And I think where our president is now, we have the authority and the power to lay down the law. In the line of my work, I got to know a lot of gangsters. And a lot of them still have respect. Just the other day, I was in Kensington and I saw one of them and I stopped. I said to me, "Wat maak jy nou?" Smokkel maar net vir die pot, but that is really not the story. But I can talk to a lot of them. And somehow I think it's important that we get to a stage where we bring all of them into one room. And we say to them honestly, your business is between you and SAPS, but our business is the streets. Our business is really the streets, and how you're dealing with our people, whether they're gangsters or they're innocent. We cannot have bodies laying on the street all the time. I saw a video the other day of an altercation that took place in an overpark. And just in poof, a shot runs out. One guy down. Now, that is where they also stoned the law enforcement.
The law enforcement, yeah.
Now, you ask yourself, firstly, where do the guns come from? The guy on the street can't afford the guns. But the guns come from Sea Point and Durbanville and all the affluent areas where the boss is. Now, either those bosses have to listen to us or they have to face the consequences. But I think one is at a stage now where you're moving almost to a point where the community is not going to tolerate what is happening. And the community is going to be helped not to tolerate what is happening. Because it's just reached unproportional times now. If I think back to 1976, when we had enough, we had enough. We fought in Belgravia Road and Thornton Road for a whole day at a time. And that was with people who had guns. But you can never, in my opinion, defeat the community who wants better. Once the community decides that enough is enough, we will then start going ahead. So it's really our job to ensure that the community knows when enough is enough.
And then are you saying that I would say spirit that existed in the 1976, do you see an now awakening of that? Can you pick it up within the community slowly?
I think very slowly one sees there's change. But we need to see that change in more than just Fadil in Parliament. We need to see that change when we do a soup kitchen or a feeding scheme. I think that the only way we are going to really change things is by revolutionizing our societies. So when we have a soup kitchen and feed people, it shouldn't be just that. We should be there talking to people about the role of the NCC. At every event, there should be people pulling in little groups of people and talking to them. And I think that is one of the ways we're going to start conscientizing our people and getting them to that point where enough is enough.
Because the reason why I posed the question it was because when I done research on you and I hear my parents, I hear my uncle speaking, I've noticed that there has been a period where our people, especially the colours, has started to sway away from politics. That they weren't, they are not so conscious anymore. They have given up on politics. But I see now that there has been slowly but surely an reawakening. The moment of President Fadil Adams, he stepped up the NCC, you know, started to have an impact in the community. I see that more and more people are gravitating towards this. But there it comes in again that this thing is so designed, like you spoke about the guns, that whenever there's a uprising, there is always a counter to that, especially when it comes to our own as colored people. Different other colored political parties then also start to rise up. So now our people are stuck in the middle because now they want to go with the promise, and that's where it comes again that when one have these outreaches and soup kitchens and stuff, it's important, and I do agree that one then gives that now political education, so that our people they can get fed physically, but mentally as well,
Yes.
because the body now is capable, and in the mind, it goes hand in hand.
Yes, I look back to the 70s and the 80s. A large part of our victories were what we were called at that time reading groups. eh? So in every area we would have reading groups. Some areas, like Mitchell's Plain, there were over 15 reading groups, where political education was the order of the day. eh?
That is reading groups, like coming to the houses and just reading.
Yes, but it's not just sitting and reading. It's about you explaining, like for instance, in those days, we talk about what socialism is, what the revolution means to us, what the armed struggle means to us. And that is the way we conscientize people. So you find that you cannot have success right now if the only thing you're going to do is give out food. Or you're going to fix a rent issue or school issue. All those issues must be highly politicized. They must be highly politicized. And people must understand in no uncertain terms that this is what the NCC does. Because that in that way we are going to get ahead. We are going to get ahead. Like I was saying to the president, we should have, I think, shortly after the elections, he should have called a meeting with, not with everybody or the community, but with people like yourselves. And let's then brainstorm what is our direction forward. What do we want to achieve between now and 2026? And then that program needs to be worked on.
And that is fundamental. And then on the point of in what way do you see the media and popular culture influencing this perceptions of gangsterism? Because one can see it on the music, on mainstream media, movies. Whenever a colored person is involved, he's either a gangster or he's in a rehab. So what's your take on this?
I think the media popularizes a lot of the negative perceptions in our community. Especially, I want to go for a bit further and say it's not really only the media, but the Americanization of our communities. The way people dress, the way whether you're a temple boy or not, but you're still rapping in that same fashion that they do in the Bronx in New York. And even the clothes we wear, you can see how Americanized it is. So if one looks realistically forward, then those are some of the issues we need to challenge as well. We need to challenge the fact that our people need to be proud of who they are. They need to be very proud of who they are, because I think when you look at the history of colored people, then we come from a very, very rich history and ancestral background that is not well publicized. For instance, you have like this woman Lucretia Boyson at the castle. She's got a cool museum there. But if you look at how many people pass the castle, colored people, how many of them know what's going on inside there? Yeah. So we almost have to take that to the people. If we look at our own heroes, if you look at people like Basil February, James April, Ashley Krill, Dulcie September, if you look at them, then why are their names not known? Eh? Everybody knows who Solomon Mashrangu is. Eh? So, there is work for us to do, and I like the way the president continuously reminds Parliament about people like Ashley Carroll. Eh?
And that is fundamental just to change the mindsets of our people, because I feel that we have been indoctrinized after 1994. We have focused so much on, I would say, being excluded, that we now adapted the voice that came from the right to say, can you see? Can you see?
Yes.
Verstaan? Julle moet saam met ons verstaan het.
Yeah.
En kan het nou gebeuren. And that's why a lot of coloreds, especially in the Western Cape, are voting now for these guys. You know?
Yeah.
Because they do not have a consciousness of who they are, and our history was purposefully removed
Absolutely.
in order for them to come and whisper in our ears. And now we can see that a lot of our people are moving and going and supporting them. You know, there was this
Yeah.
lady on TikTok that I sit and listen to a live where she said dat sy het al die jare nou gewoond vir die NP en sy sal nooit sien sie en die DA is fine alles daai, and this is already as a groterige vrou man. And now one can just hear the conversations that is happening behind her closed doors when it comes to her kids, you know. But what stood out was that she's feeding the community, and she's okay with just feeding the community instead of showing the community how to feed themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so she wants to be on that pedestal, you know, where I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And now people are okay with that, man. And that is...
like a slave. You
Yeah.
see, like the slave master would do. He'd take one slave and put them on a pedestal so that they deal with all the other slaves. And this is what she's doing. She's not educating people, like you say, to come out of that poverty. But she's keeping them there by giving them something all the time.
Yes, come to the line to me.
Yes.
I will feed you.
I will feed you, yes.
And not showing them how I came with these resources, with these donations and whatever. You can also do it, and if you do it in that road, and then so you can just have a ripple effect into the other road, and so we can help one another. There's no need anymore for that, where we can do it our own. So it just speaks again about the history of our people that has been purposefully, I would say, pushed aside to the borders of history, to the margins of history, and our heroes are not anymore now discussed. Have you worked with a few other fallen comrades? Is there perhaps a story that you, something memorable that you could?
No, other than knowing them, I never worked with them because our taskings were totally different. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And then on the final question is, I would just like to know, man, that what role can education and mentorship play in preventing gangsterism? I know you spoke about the one fella that was soos 'n Koran geteken, you know, and how it's important for him now to come in. But the school system itself and the curriculum, like one don't hear, we are being taught, soos Nazmiel sal sê, van 'n kakkerlakke en goede. You know, we are not being taught about drug abuse, you know.
Yeah.
Primary school level.
Exactly.
Because now, I remember when I was in high school, I first heard about condoms and drugs. It was in high school. And we were already bizar in primary school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So how can one...
I think that
in.
education plays a major role in our success, and especially starting at primary school level. Because sadly to say, most kids at high school level you've lost already. Eh? Eh? So we've got to build from primary school level the base. Eh? And but not saying that we don't work with the high schools. Eh? We've got to work with the high schools as well and change people there. Eh? But I think the scourge of drugs in this community of ours is so huge. Look, it's not by chance. Eh? If you go back to the 70s in Bonteheuwel, Wouter Basson used to fly over Bonteheuwel and spray out Mandrake's powder, eh? And get the people to get the taste of it. Eh? They used to produce, the military intelligence used to produce their own Mandrakes, eh? And sell it to people like Rashid Staghi, eh? To people in our communities. And I think we need to change that perception, eh? That it's only from the whites that we can have success. We need to change that perception, and this is what is so important for me to meet with gangsters, eh? is to show them a different road. Eh? Eh? I'm not saying stop your gangsterism, because gangsterism is so old already. Eh? It's over 200 years old in the country. Eh? It's not something that anybody is going to stop. You know, I had a big laugh in 2016. We got a new provincial commissioner who came from KwaZulu-Natal. And he was saying, you know, I don't understand, you guys can't deal with the gangs. And then at the launch of the Safer Festive season in Mitchell's Plain, he said to people, in 3 months' time, there will be no gangs left in this province. And I mean, people were laughing. I mean, we were even laughing, because it's stupid to think that you can say, you know, just like that. Eh? But it's a problem when we leave it and we see it happening, and we sit in rooms like this and talk about it and not active on the streets. Eh? Our success and our victory into the future is going to be how we treat the streets. Eh? Because if you look at colored people have been marginalized to such an extent that, like you rightfully say, they don't feel worth themselves. Eh? They don't pay attention to what other people pay attention to. Eh? Many times when we used to conduct raids in the various colored areas, eh? And you find there that people don't have an ID, eh? ID card. They don't know or haven't seen or know how to read a rent paper. Eh? Those are all things that have slipped by our people. Eh? And it has contributed to their feeling of worthlessness. Eh? So we need to take those things back to them. Eh? So if you look at it, there isn't just a thing of dealing with gangsterism. Eh? One needs to deal with education, with social development, with human settlements. All of these things need to be dealt with. And that is why it's so important for me, for the NCC to take control of local government, eh? So that we can deliver these things to our people.
And then the final question I just would like to find out, is there a message that you would like to share for any of the viewers watching the channel on from your personal experience, how one could get more involved out in our community and bring that change, and not just sit and talk, you know, as you mentioned, because at the end of the day, I believe that no man is an island, and that we are all affected about what is happening within our communities.
Yes, I think I just want to say I don't think there is a coloured family in the Western Cape or even outside of the Western Cape that hasn't experienced any setbacks. Whether it be gangsterism or drugs or prison, the reality, no matter how uppity you try to be, there's somebody in your line that has gone through that. And our people need to be conscious of that. We need to take to our people a, a way for a better life, a way that we can also live. I'm not talking about living as wealthy people. If one looks at how the Cuban model of how people live, people don't have fancy houses there, but everybody has a house. Right? Everybody has their children at school. You know, if I think back, I think it was in the 80s, Fidel Castro addressed the United Nations, and he said, there are 5 million homeless children in the world, and not one of them is a Cuban.
Yeah.
That is my motivation. That is my motivation to our people to say, we need to come together. We need to leave this thing of always wanting to criticize the next colored man if he goes ahead. I just look at how people were talking about the 1.2 million. That was the focus of what they were saying. Let's leave that nonsense behind us. Let's see our suffering and our oppression as colored people. And let's go forward and work towards eradicating that oppression. And come whatever ways it has to happen. It just has to happen. It has to happen. We cannot sit by any longer and watch our people being downtrodden.
That's true. As I
Yeah. On the way here, we decided to put in a what you would call a crazy, or how did I say, a wild card question. Yeah. So basically, the question I struggled to formulate was, and I'm not sure how this is going to apply to SEPs because it's mainly experienced with law enforcement. Like for example, the experience we had in our community is that there's an area where dumping takes place. So the seniors in the community decided they're going to clean it because City of Cape Town is not coming to clean. And law enforcement drive past there every other day, but don't do anything about the dumping that goes on there. So one day, one of the elder ladies was just picking up rubbish that was laying already there, moving it from one spot to another. Then the law enforcement saw her did that. He pulled up and threatened to fine her for illegal dumping. He could clearly see they were busy with a beautification project because they've cleaned one side and planted there already. They were just doing the other section. So the question that I'm alluding to is, what kind of mechanism do you think can be put in place whereby our law enforcers, even SEPs, are not like androids or robots who just, it's my work, if they can see that this particular law or bylaw, whatever, is not to the benefit of the community, to not just want to enforce it because it's the law, regardless of whether it's having a negative impact on the community. So I just want to pick your brain. What do you think can be implemented to address a situation like that, whereby a specific law, the law enforcer or the SEPs wants to now enforce, but it's going to have a negative impact on the community? What can be put in place so that they are not just like robots, and they can also have an influence as an some kind of level of autonomy, that they can make a decision there whether they are going to implement it or not, or take it up to the higher ups and try to have an influence to make this law change so that it can be beneficial to the community. So in essence, I'm hoping you understand the question I'm trying to put across.
I think firstly, one wants to say that to solve that problem, we need to take control of the city of Cape Town. We need to change the hierarchy there and get rid of all the apartheid stooges that are there. But in the interim, I think it's important for us to engage these law enforcement officers and engage them with our ideology and say to them, what you are doing is really wrong. I think in the beginning you're going to get hostility. But soon they'll start realizing that this is the order of the day. You can't just come into this community and do what you want to. For instance, I look at like on the freeways and whatever. Often you see law enforcement there breaking down the little shelter that people have. Unfortunately for me, it's all our own people that are being dealt with. And I take it upon myself to stop. Some of them know me, some of them don't. But I identify myself and I say, can you stop doing this? Because tonight it's going to rain again. Do you have an alternative place to take this person to? No, you don't. So leave them where they are. Regardless of your bylaw. Regardless of what you've been told you must do. During the COVID times at Strandfontein, I almost got into fist fights with the city of Cape Town. Because there was again no understanding of our people's plight. You think because you create a massive tent there with food thrice a day, that is not the life of a homeless person. A homeless person gets their wealth on the streets struggling. That is where their wealth comes from. And we need to respect that and look at it. Yes, you can provide a shelter where they don't have to having 50 rand or whatever to go and pay to be able to use a shelter. But you cannot stop them from starving. On a Friday when they collect dirt here, I talk to all the people here who come and scratch in the bins. They know me already. Because I understand their life. And that is what is lacking. And maybe, I don't know if that answers your question, that we need to enforce our ideology on the law enforcement and SAPS.
There you go. Thank you, Jenna.
Just one last. I have to ask this question because we've touched upon President Fadil Adams now making an impact in Parliament, and them now having joined the Progressive Caucus. I would just like to get your take on that. Do you see it as something positive or something negative? Because based on the comment section that we experience on our platform, it's a bit of a mix. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think firstly one has to say to our people, los die ding van die swart gevaar. We have a bigger goal. We want to change this constitution of this country that's been written against us. It's got nothing to do with us. We want to change some of the laws in this country, like you were talking about. We want to change that. But as an NCC, we cannot go so alone and change that. We don't have the power. eh? But I think us joining the Progressive Caucus gives us an opportunity to take these things forward. Eh? Gives us an opportunity to bring change in the country. Eh? I know quite a lot of the MK party people, eh? And I chat to them regularly. Eh? And one of the things I often say is that nothing will give me more joy than to see us freeze the assets and the wealth of the Stellenbosch mafia and tell them to go. Eh? Those are the things that I would like to see happening for us. Eh? Eh? Because it just cannot go on like this. Eh? Ramaphosa has taken us down to the dregs of the earth, eh? By selling us all out to these white people. Eh? People that's making his life easier. Eh? So he doesn't care about any of us. Eh? Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you again, General, for this opportunity. Thank you for allowing us to be in your presence. Thank you so much. It's an honor. It's truly be an honor.
It's really a pleasure and an honor for me to speak to you guys as well.
I hope this won't be the last. Yeah, but thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.